Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another very special episode of the Unfiltered, Uncensored, and Unapologetically Black podcast show, Speak to the Mic. I am your illustrious host, Marlon Joseph. And ladies and gentlemen, you all know the drill here. We are here to impart information and education on the Black community, being provided to you by Black men and women of all professions, entities, and organizations, from people who look just like us and doing it in the most unapologetic way that we know how. Make sure you hit those like, share, subscribe buttons to my YouTube channel, to Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any podcast platform you can find this podcast on. You definitely don't want to miss this information that's being pumped out and dispersed to you, because we all know information hits home a lot differently when it's coming from people who resemble you from a physical standpoint as well as from a lifestyle standpoint. Each and every one of us know there's a lot of there's a multitude of sites and avenues to go at when it comes to information being out here, but information it impacts us a lot more when it's coming from people who have similar backgrounds and upbringings as we do. Right? So definitely don't want to miss information here being pumped out every single week and every single time that I'm able to record a podcast. Here with me today is a very astute and very intelligent gentleman by the name of Taji White, who is a financial advisor. He to talk with me about financial independency and how we can best take full advantage of the opportunities that we have and that's presented to us when it comes to the overall world of entrepreneurship and just owning your own business. Taji, thank you so much for being on the show to speak with me about this, man. This is definitely a topic that's ongoing conversation that I'm having with several of my guests who are respected in this area, who can really speak to the very facts. And I'm very glad to have you on the show to speak to that as well.
It's my pleasure. It's actually a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate that, man. So I want to dive in. I'm always, very intrigued by my guests and how things started for them in the beginning, right? So just to, kick things off, how did you even get into the idea of finances in your beginning stage? What does that beginning for you look like?
That's a good question. So it actually started when I was young, when I was a kid. And the reason why I say that is because my mom would give us money and, on the weekends, we would go out to the mall. And what I would do is I would leave my money home. And when we got to the mall, if I wanted something, I would ask my brothers, my sister, my mom for the money. So I didn't know back then, but I was leveraging OPM, other people's money. So I was using credit and I didn't even know it. And the benefit of that was sometimes they'll be like, I got it for you. You don't have to give me nothing. But if they needed the money back, I would definitely give it back to them. So it started there, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward to high school and college, I was always good with math. In high school, by 12th grade, I didn't have to take any math because I had already taken all the math.
Wow.
In college, my friends that I had in my class, if it was a math class, they wanted to study with me. So always good with math. Also, at the ending of my my college years, I was able to teach at a Christian academy, 4th and 5th grade math. So math has always been, a tool that I had in my tool bag, something I was really good at.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to 13 years ago, which I'm telling my age, but 13 years ago, when I first got into finances, it was a friend of a friend asking me, "Hey, TJ, you trying to make some extra money on the side?" And I was like, "Oh, sure, yeah, I'm down with that." And he was like, "Okay, it's gonna be doing taxes." And I was like, "Taxes? Oh no, I'm good. I don't want to do taxes," because I was thinking, like, my mentality back then is, hey, taxes is something you want somebody else to do. You don't even want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So I was like, nah. And then about a week or two later, he had invited me over and it was a get together. A few of our friends were there, and he was like, "Hey, TJ, come here real quick. Let me show you something." So he actually showed me, like, the process, the training, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, let me give it a try." So I did, and he introduced me to an accountant, and I actually working under that accountant for, I want to say, about 8 years.
Yeah. Oh,
Hmm.
that's impressive. So the funny thing about your story that you mentioned is that you were really good at math, right? So I was pretty good at math growing up, but I wasn't really
Hmm.
good at managing money necessarily because obviously I mimicked the environment around me when it came to, whenever we got money in the neighborhood, we would just sit up here and, oh man, think about the first thing we could think of to spend it on, right? Or spend all
Hmm.
of it on. And so
Yeah.
the fact that you took the money that was given to you as like possibly as an allowance, you
Hmm.
took that money as like just stole it away and said, you know what?
Hmm.
I'll be able to just manage someone else's money rather than just, focus on spending my own, right? So
Yeah.
the fact that you had that mindset early on kind of separates you from the rest of us growing up in
Yeah.
our neighborhood that we grew up in, right? Because you and I both know statistically, the black dollar stays in the community no longer than 5 to 6 minutes, and that's
Hmm.
unfortunate for us because we haven't been taught financial literacy to even
Hmm.
understand how to manage money, how to invest, how to save, things like that. And so for you to have been taught that, early on in your life kind of separates you. And those are those one-off situations. Not everyone in the black community has been taught to or not taught how to manage money, but it's been a few of us, through the weeds of that, who have been fortunate enough to have parents or a parent for that matter to teach them that. So I mean, yeah, kudos to you and your family and your household for teaching you that. I
I
wish I'd
appreciate
known that early on, but I mean, everything happens in its divine time, right? So
Exactly, exactly. So to be honest, my mother, very hard working woman.
yeah,
I love her to death. Uh, and people teach you in different type of ways.
yeah,
So what the way she taught me was, she was always ah, tripping about her credit card bills,
oh
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
tripping about money. And I would see her work a lot and still be, it was four of us. She would work a lot and she would always be tripping about money. So I learned from that, and and I thought to myself, I don't want to be in that position where I'm
absolutely.
always tripping about money. Because when you get to college, they take advantage of college students. They'll say, "Hey, you want to sub from Subway?" And you be like, "Sure, I'm hungry." All right, so fill out this credit card application and we'll give you a free sub or free pizza.
Yeah,
So, they
yeah,
take advantage of of college students and get them into credit early, when you don't know how to use and leverage credit, right?
yeah.
And because of my mom always having issues with credit card bills and stuff like that, I was like, you know what? If I don't have the money, I'm not spending it.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's funny how people teach you, how they can teach you directly or indirectly. And
Indirectly, absolutely.
yeah, in
Just
that
through
case.
experience alone can be
Mhm.
a lesson learned, right? So I've had that lesson taught to me inadvertently, where
Yeah.
I'm looking at someone and I'm learning vicariously through them with the
Mhm.
experiences that they have, and that's a pretty similar experience that I had with my mom too. With my mom, having credit cards, things like that, and then having to
Mhm.
worry about credit card bills coming through the mail and how she's going to pay them. So I've experienced that to a certain degree as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely want to kind of touch on like just kind of like speeding up time here in terms of that timeline from when you first started off with the idea of being in finance to how it started to look for you, once you got into this business, right? So I want to ask you a question in regards to your profession. What are some of the ways to build wealth as a small business owner?
Good question. So, and it's various ways to build wealth as a small business owner. But what I'm gonna talk to is now,
Yeah,
the current the current situation now, right? So, I mean, you have Roth IRAs, stocks, ETFs, REITs, which is real estate investment trust. You have real estate. You have various ways to gain wealth and acquire wealth. Yet, due to inflation, the dollar losing its value right now, a lot of countries are coming away from the U.S. dollar as a standard, which forces the value of the dollar down even more. The best thing that I would invest my money in right now for wealth is index, and you can invest in the index through annuities, life insurance. You can invest in index in a Roth IRA, numerous ways. And the way an index work, and this is very important to why this is a really good wealth generator right now, is the way an index work is, let's just say you have a quarter, right? You take that quarter, you throw it down, it's gonna hit the floor. It's not gonna go through the ground. It's not gonna come out on the bottom. Nah, it's gonna hit the floor. It's gonna stop. You take that same quarter, you throw it up. It's gonna hit the ceiling and stop. It's not gonna go through the roof or nothing. It's gonna hit the ceiling and stop. So that's how your money works in the index. When you invest in the index, you're not investing in the market. You're investing against the market. So what happens is, in the index, when the market goes up, your money goes up. When the market goes down, your money stays where it's at. It stays where it's at. You have a guarantee of principal, which means that if you had $1,000 in there, and let's say the market went up, and now you have 1,500. If the market goes down now, you're going to stay at that 1,500. And the reason why that's important is because not participating in the loss is going to keep you ahead. So once the market corrects and everything is going back up, you'll be able to take it. You'll have that gap between being in the market and taking the losses and not being in the market. So what that index does is give you that protection. And that's what I would advise a lot of people to invest in: indexes. Right now, indexes, because you have that guarantee of your principal. You don't want your money. I had a client, man. She had like $500,000 in sitting 401ks. So sitting 401ks is like if you leave a job and the company is no longer managing your 401k. Yeah. So she came to me and she was like, TJ, I got this money sitting to the side. I need your help. Her nest egg, right? Mm-hmm. So I did her taxes, and we found out that she had 500,000. So it wasn't until a year later she came back to me. When she came back to me, it was 300,000 in the account. So she had lost. Yes, she had lost $200,000, right? Dang. So she was like, TJ, I'm ready now. Like, I know.
I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like, man,
I know you're ready.
That's a very significant loss, man.
Yes. So real quick, how that works is, if you're investing in a 401k with a company, then they have somebody managing that money. If there's a stock or a fund that's basically operating at a loss, they'll take that out, sell their shares, put another company that works better in that situation. Well, when you leave the company, it's no longer getting rebalanced. It's no longer getting managed. It's just going with the trend of the market. Yeah. So
and it stays with that company. Like that company doesn't change, right?
So basically, what happens is you have it basically puts it in the IRA, an individual retirement account. Yeah. So the stocks that were invested in that fund, those stay the same. Yet the company is no longer having the money managers managing the money, which means that,
Gotcha.
it's just gonna stay where it's at until the market goes up. It's gonna go up, but then when the market goes down, it's gonna
Gonna
go
go
down.
down.
And if it's taking a huge hit, it's gonna keep going down because there's no one managing those portfolios once it's a sitting 401k.
Okay, so
So
so real quick though, I want to dive on that for a second because
yeah, for
I
sure.
myself, I try to monitor my 401k because obviously I've worked for several companies over the years, and I always make
Mhm,
sure that I transition from one company to the next and enroll in that
mhm,
401k plan. But how
mhm.
important is it for us to stay abreast of our 401k portfolio and how to monitor that? Like if we're not necessarily financially savvy or financially in tune, how do we stay abreast of what's happening in the market when it comes to our 401k portfolio?
So uh, this is the advice that I would give for people who are investing in a 401k, right? Um, I would invest in a 401k only if the employer is giving you a match, right?
Right.
Because let's just say they're saying, hey, I'm going to give you $100, right? If you put in $100 and the market goes down, now their money is insurance to your money. So not only does your money double,
Yeah.
but now if it goes down, it's basically taking their money, right?
Yeah.
Yet if you go over the match, because I know a lot of people who like, yeah, I want to overfund it, right?
Mhm.
That's putting yourself in a dangerous position only because they say, hey, I'm only giving you $100, right? But if
Mhm.
you put 200 in, or if you put 150 in, when the market goes down, it's taking the overage that you put in first, right? It's taking that amount
Oh,
first,
okay. That makes a lot of
and
sense.
then once it depletes the amount that you put in over, then it goes to the employer amount. So I
Okay.
would always urge people who have 401ks uh, to make sure they're matching,
Yeah.
because if they're not matching, then you can do better by yourself, if you will.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So now to put this in context into more broader perspective. So
Hmm.
whenever, because I know a company I'm working for, they had three different options. They had 8%, 10%, and 12%. So,
Hmm.
whatever percentage that I put in, they're going to match that. But if
Hmm.
I put in more than what they put in, then once the market, dwindles, then my money is hit first before their money.
Yes, sir.
Wow, I
Yep.
did not know that. Okay,
Yep.
that
In
that
our
that makes a lot
industry,
of sense.
we call that naked money.
Naked money. Okay,
Yep.
that makes a
Because
lot of sense. But
there's
only if we're putting in more than what they're putting in. But they put in the
correct.
same amount, then their money that they're invested into our portfolio gets hit first once the market
Yeah,
does go down.
exactly. And their money is insurance to your money. Their money is basically protecting the money that you put in.
Okay, because yeah, myself and my wife, we actually have a financial advisor. We have Roth
Hmm.
IRAs that we obviously have in. We got life insurance policies and things like that. So we always staying in touch. We
Good.
constantly restructuring our budgets with him, and he's very informative with us, letting us know exactly how the
Hmm.
market is looking. He gives us, email notifications about what is fluctuated, what's gone up, what stayed median, and what's gone down, things like that. So that's definitely helpful to know that because a lot of people who have 401ks are not fully in tune with how it impacts them now and later. So that
Right.
is very intriguing that you touched on that because a lot of us need to know that with us, investing in our future. We want to invest in our retirement, but with the way retirement's looking and Social Security is looking, it's so shaky and it's so inconsistent that we don't even know which way is left and which way is up, right? So it's like, how do we stay
Right.
on top of these types of things when it comes to just overall being notified about the different changes that's happening rather than just listening to the news and watching the news? But
Hmm.
really, so we should be as active as we can when it comes to periodically, maybe weekly, checking our 401k portfolio to see what's changing and then kind of ingratiating ourselves with understanding how this market works. Because a lot of times, again, with lack of financial independence, we don't know what we don't know until
Hmm.
something happens. And now it's like, oh, I didn't even
Ooh,
realize this was going to hit
exactly.
like this. Like, wait, this is a lot of my money that I'm investing in long term, so I won't have to work past 65. And it's funny, something that you said too earlier about how, and I saw this on the news recently, that it was a multitude of countries that's looking to merge together to start their own currency to basically usurp the US dollar. Like,
Yep.
so, and one thing I've learned over the years about the US dollar is we're the only country that, if I'm not mistaken, that's bases our money on credit when everyone else, has pounds, and obviously their money is in gold. So I guess my question to that is, why are we so different than these other countries when it comes to how we're basically scaling or even putting value to our currency? Like, can you touch a little bit on that? Because you kind of mentioned to that earlier, but I want to go back to that real quick because I think that's very important with how this market is constantly changing and just how the other countries are operating and moving versus how the US is constantly in debt. Like, looking at all this trillion damn dollars of debt we in, I'm like, who the hell do we owe this damn money to? The damn Decepticons or something? Like, we can't possibly owe nobody on Earth this much money. There's got to be some folks in another planet somewhere that we owe this much money to, right? Like, this is not making any sense.
Right. So we used to be under the gold standard where the gold is going to match the money. Yeah, I believe it was President Nixon took us off the gold standard.
Yeah.
And another thing is, America, we're bullies, right? So one of the things that was done was oil, right, was traded only in US dollar. So that's where the dollar standard came from, because now all the other countries, when they want to buy oil, they have to convert their currency into US dollars in order to buy the gold. In order to buy the oil. So that's basically what we did, or what America did, was made the dollar the standard, and basically took away the gold standard, and now it's just the fiat. However we feel the money is worth, that's what it's worth. You see what I'm saying? By being bullies.
Yeah.
And
but even still, though, the US dollar is not even the highest currency, though, still to this day.
I want to say about maybe it's probably been about 4 or 5 years ago, the euro, the pound, over, was basically more valuable than the dollar.
Yeah.
And every year that's going to go down. Every year, that's basically what inflation is.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Inflation is just like with the eggs. We used to pay $2 $4
$4 for like a dozen and a half. Now these damn eggs are $10, man. Like, what? Bro, are you kidding me?
Bro, I seen that. It was.
I just stopped buying eggs, man.
Exactly. Exactly. Listen, I forget which holiday it was. It was a holiday, and not many stores were open, but Walgreens was open. And we were making breakfast for everyone, and we didn't have enough eggs. So it was like, hey, TJ, go get some eggs. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll go grab some eggs. Man, I went to Walgreens. It was the only place that was open. The eggs was $10, $11. And I'm like, wait.
Get out of here, man.
How? How was eggs?
That's ridiculous.
How was eggs $10? What? So
and think about this.
Inflation.
I mean, this
Inflation
is Easter time now too. So it's like now you talking about going Easter egg hunting. How we gonna hunt for eggs that ain't none out here? And if it is out here, how the hell are you finding these eggs that is so damn expensive? Like, I'm not gonna even waste my time. I'm not gonna even have my kids waste their time either. This is ridiculous, man.
It would be better for you to buy the plastic eggs.
Right.
put a $1 or $2 in it.
Exactly. like we used to do when we were kids, because trying to like look for some real eggs. This ain't even the season or the time to be doing it, man. But I want to transition really quick to something in regards to your profession. So as a financial advisor, and I read your portfolio, and I was very impressed by this to know these different things about you and how you've been successful in this area, right? So you talked a little bit about having roadmaps for, for small business owners. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Like, what is the significance of a business owner having a roadmap or even needing a roadmap when it comes to planning out their success, or, whether long-term or short-term?
Yeah. So roadmaps are essential when you're goal oriented, right?
Yeah,
And when you talk about business, you have a starting point and you have a point that you're trying to get to, right?
yeah,
Uh, I have I have clients that are making, thousand, $40,000, $50,000 with their business. Some of them are even doing it on the side, and their goal is to come away from the job and at least make six figures with their business. Well, in
yeah,
order to get from point A to point B, you have to have a roadmap. You can't wander aimlessly trying to figure it out. And you
yeah.
touched on something before where you said, listen, I have a financial advisor,
Mhm.
because some of the things that I talked about, Roth IRA, REIT, ETFs, even stocks, people don't even don't know anything about it, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
it's important. It's mentors and professionals, experts in fields. It's important to hire these people
yeah,
because it's going to shorten the learning curve, right? And they're gonna know all the pitfalls and all those things that you can avoid ahead of time.
yeah.
So so it's very important. And another thing, if you go on, if I'm going from Atlanta to Miami, right, and I'm driving, I'm not just gonna get in the car and just drive, because
Right.
eventually I'm gonna get lost. You see what I'm
Yep.
saying? So a roadmap is very important with that. And I actually just wrote a book, The Four Pillars of Financial Independence.
Okay.
Um, and we talk about your roadmap, right? And we use an acronym called BITE on how we help our clients with finances.
Okay.
And with that acronym, B is business formation. And a lot of people are like, hey, man, I can go on Secretary of State and do my own business formation. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yet there are certain things that you need to do, certain things that you need to be aware of, right? One of the things is trademark. So you want to, a lot of people don't do it, but you want to look to see if your name is already trademarked,
Yep.
right? Because Secretary of State, that only uh, that only makes your business formal in that state. But then you got other states that you want to operate within. And if you don't have that trademark, what a trademark does is that makes your business formal in the nation, in the US,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
you don't want to get to a point where you have a business name and then you're doing really good with your business and then you have a cease and desist letter sent to you like, hey, I have a trademark for this name, and you know you're gonna have to stop using it basically. So
Ah,
and a lot of people don't even think about that,
yeah.
when they go to form their business. So with your business, and I touch on all of these things within my book. uh, so with your business, you have articles of organization, you have tax ID, you have DUNS number, you have operating agreement. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, hey, let me just get my articles of organization and let me just get my tax ID and I'm good. Well, it's other things that you need to have in place, and that goes into the next part of business, which is maintenance. Because what a lot of people think is, yeah, I get that stuff and I'm good, I'm protected, and that's not the truth. That's not the truth. Your business has to be maintained correctly in order for you to have limited liability. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Yep.
So there's
LLC.
certain
Yep.
things, yep, there's certain things that you have to have in place. You have to have a business bank account,
Yep.
right? You have some people still working out their personal account, and it don't hit them until maybe they're in a position where they get sued, the business gets sued, and then a good lawyer will be able to say, hey, this with this business, they say LLC, but they're still operating out of their personal account.
Yep.
So it
So
has to
it's
be
impacting you directly rather than impacting your business.
exactly. So now your savings account, now your homes, now your cars, all of that can get leveraged, with that lawsuit. Whereas if you have your business bank account, now you separate yourself from the business. You see what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So it's certain little things that you need to be aware of, or that you need to have in place in order to make sure you are maintaining your business correctly. Because a good lawyer will pierce the corporate veil, meaning they're going to find something that you're doing that you're not doing right
Yeah.
to get access to more money, if you will.
Yeah. Absolutely. And they would exploit that wrongdoing and make that wrongdoing overlap all the right that you have done correctly and all the things you've done legally. It's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to usurp everything you did right. This one thing, and it can just catapult to something much worse than what it is. And now you're having to leverage your house, your
Mm-hmm.
car, and other different assets as capital to basically go towards that lawsuit possibly. So
Yep.
yeah, I've
Yep.
learned it. I've learned it over time, and speaking to
Mm-hmm.
gentlemen like yourself and a few other gentlemen, a few other people I've actually had on the show to talk about financial independence from that
Mm-hmm.
perspective. The overall understanding of establishing an LLC and what it consists of is very
Mm-hmm.
important and key to a successful business being ran, right? So
Mm-hmm.
people
Mm-hmm.
have to be very much so aware and abreast of all these different things, because some of these different things hasn't changed over the years. Some of these things are pretty standard, but in some of
Yep.
the things that have changed, you got to stay on top of, because if you don't know what's changing out here to help help you be more successful in this area as a business owner, then you're not going to know the ins and outs of how to be successful in that area, and then you're going to find yourself in a situation where, okay, I didn't know about this until after the
Mm-hmm.
fact, and now
Yep.
it's gonna cost you possibly assets, possibly money, possibly fines, or whatever the case may be, depending on the severity of that situation. It can cost you
Yep.
greatly, or it can cost you a small minor fee or fine. But you definitely want to
Right.
stay abreast of all this information that's being pumped out. Definitely.
Exactly. And
So
then
so yeah, even about your book, obviously those four pillars that you talk about from a business
mhm,
standpoint. Talk to me a little bit about how this impacts the advice that you're giving your clients on an everyday basis as a financial
mhm,
advisor.
sure. So uh, so that's B. The next letter is I. So whenever I'm talking to my clients, I'm looking at their situation comprehensively. Everything within Byte that we're educating our clients on is being basically, how could I put it, thought about when we're giving them advice. That's why it's important to have that customized roadmap. So I is investments. That's your Roth IRAs, ETFs, all that good stuff that we talked about earlier, right?
Mm.
Also, oh yeah, and I did forget to mention gold. Gold, silver, commodities are really good to improve your wealth, especially because when 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 the U.S. dollar goes up, then the price of gold and silver goes down. When the U.S. dollar goes down, the price of gold and silver goes up.
Okay.
So we help our clients to invest in assets. It's very important to invest in assets, right? And not only do we do that, but we help our clients to be able to collateralize, borrow. Like I was telling you before, we're at the tail end of an acquisition, and I was able to leverage my stocks, my Roth IRA, all
Yeah.
of my assets in order to solidify buying that next asset, which was another office, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So what I do is on the I part is I help my clients to not only create wealth through various channels, but also to use that wealth to acquire more wealth. Because see, what
Absolutely.
happens is a lot of times like sometimes you're gonna have to sell stocks in order to make things happen. But what I teach clients how to do is collateralize, borrow against the assets that they can collateralize, borrow against. And the reason why that's so important is because if I have an asset and that asset is growing at a rate, I don't want to pull it and stop the growth of my money.
Yeah.
No, what's smarter is to leverage OPM, other people's money. So instead of, let's just say I have an asset that's growing at 6%, instead of me taking that money out of a position of growing at 6, 7%, I can say, hey, I have this money over here. I have, let's just say I'm trying to pull $10,000 and I have, let's just say I have $10,000 in that asset. What I can do is say, hey, I have the $10,000, right? But I don't want to take it out of a position where it's not making money, because once I spend that money, it's gone.
Yeah.
It can't. Yeah. When you make income, it comes back, but that net worth is now gone. You have to build it back up. So what I help my clients to do is use that asset as leverage to buy more assets. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's a lot smarter, because look, you can say, hey, I have the $10,000, but I don't want to take it out of that position. I want to borrow your money. And then instead of them charging you 6%, 7%, they're like, you know what? Let me charge you 3%, because now you done took away the risk for them. Because all they have to do is, if you default, they just leverage the asset, you know?
Okay.
So we teach our clients not only how to increase their net worth, how to increase their wealth, but we also teach them how to leverage that wealth to acquire more wealth. And that's in I. T is, and that's the season we're in, and it's coming to an end, taxes.
Absolutely.
So
that's very important.
Yes, very, very important. Especially when you start making money, you want to see how much you're being taxed, and you want to mitigate. You want to pay as least as you can legally.
Right. Yeah. Keyword legal.
Yes.
Because just quick interjection here. We'll talk about legally. So I'm gonna touch on this humorously at the end of the show about this one particular person, but I'll touch on that after you actually explain this part, because this is very important, but it's also humorously important too to know exactly what took place with this one particular person that's in a lot of damn trouble, and it's hilarious. So, but go ahead, continue on.
Yeah. So right now we're in the season of tax prep, but also in the T, we have tax planning and bookkeeping. So tax planning is greater than tax prep. And the reason why I say that is,
what's the difference between the two? Yeah, what's the difference between the two?
Yes, sir. So during tax prep is basically, we gather all your tax documents after the year is over.
Yeah.
And now we're trying to use accounting strategies to lower the amount of taxes that you have to pay, or in some cases, increase the refund that you would get, right? So that's tax prep. Tax planning is right after the tax prep season, when you actually strategize to lower that. So the difference is, tax prep, I may have 5 or 6 things that I can help that I can do to help your situation. Whereas with tax planning, I may have a book of 30 things that we can do to put you in a better situation. So once the year is over, it's over. You can't implement any strategies to mitigate taxes. You have to basically use what you can use. Whereas if you are doing tax planning, which is right after the tax prep season, now we can implement strategies. So what we do is, we look at your whole situation, and we forecast and project out how much you're going to make by the end of the year and how much taxes you're going to owe. Once we get those numbers, then we're able to figure out what strategies we can use in order to lower your taxable your tax liability. So one of the things which I know a lot of people talk about this, but it works, is if you have a child over the age of 6, between 7 and 17, you can hire your child, right? So how that looks is you can pay your child up to the standard deduction. The standard deduction right now is 12,900 or 12,950. So you can pay your child $12,800. It'll be a write-off on your taxes. So, and this is per child. It'll be a write-off, a $12,800 write-off on your taxes. Your child does not have to pay taxes on that money because it's under the standard deduction. And then you can now use that money to create a Roth IRA for your child, a custodial account where you can create a Roth IRA for your child. Because now that child has earned income, and now you can create retirement for them, right? So yeah, so you have,
to know that. Yeah.
yes. Now you definitely want a professional to help you with this, because you would have to have payroll set up, which is simple, but you would have to have it set up where you're taking money from the business account and paying the child to their personal account. So they have to have an account. The parent or the guardian cannot use that money for rent or mortgage, but it can be used for groceries, utilities, any expenses associated with the child. You can use that money for that. You see what I'm saying? So it has to be implemented correctly, but that's 12,900 that you're able to write off. And just think about people who have multiple kids, how huge of a deduction that could be. Another thing is we have what we call in our industry tax harvesting. And tax harvesting is when you sell all of your losing stocks before December. And so everything that I'm talking about, you want to implement before the year ends. So you sell all of your losing stock before the year ends. And what happens is you can write that loss off on your taxes up to $3,000. So that's a $3,000 deduction that you have on your taxes just by using tax harvesting. So we look into that. We also look into 179, if you bought a car, being able to use bonus depreciation, and a lot of other things. So you have some people who they say, hey, what we're gonna do is accelerate your expenses in order to have more of a write-off. And that just means, hey, let me pay January, February, and March rent from my office, so I can have that write-off for that year. And that's cool in certain instances, but with me, I'd rather say, hey, let's put that extra, let's just say it's $1,000 a month. Let's put that extra $3,000 in the asset in order to get the same write-off. So, that's my approach. I like using assets versus, paying things off and, taking a birthday trip and having to spend all this money just for a write-off. No, let's find assets, a home, because with the home, not only can you write off the expenses associated with the home if you're renting it out, short-term rental, but you also have depreciation on that home. So if the home is $3,000, that's about $11,000 each year that you can now write off of your taxes. So I love to leverage investments and assets to help my clients with tax planning. But that's what we do. We take a deep dive into your situation and we mitigate the taxes up front. So there's no surprise. Because I've had a lot of, wow, I owe that much.
Yeah,
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 well,
and it's crazy too because obviously when you're looking at it from a socioeconomic standpoint, you have the lower
mhm,
class, middle upper, middle lower, and then the upper class, right? So the wealthy
mhm,
people, and they find these loopholes and wiggle them around how to get out of paying so much money in taxes to where their businesses are the ones that's paying very little on the taxes. They themselves don't have to pay taxes because they found ways to get around these loopholes through the government, obviously, and the government not doing a thorough job with basically making them pay more taxes, which allows them to keep most of their profits and their wealth to generate more of it
so
each year.
so to be honest, it's the government that's creating the loopholes
Right.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so they're creating the loopholes for their gain. So when they
Yeah.
do their own taxes,
So they only
they
get
can
penalized by the very things that they legislated. Basically, that's exactly what they're doing, and it's all a monopoly game. And I've learned it over the years of time of understanding how this country works and just how the world works in general, right? But preferably this
mhm,
country because we live here. And it's like, okay,
mhm,
the more money you make, the more ways you can find to get around paying so much taxes, which is why one particular person claim to be so wealthy and he pay only $750 damn dollars in taxes. And I'm just like, man, that's a bunch of
mhm,
bullshit because I paid more than that. Hell, one year they told me I owe them more money. I was like, wait, what? What you mean
yeah,
I owe you more? I ain't make that much.
right,
I ain't wealthy. So you gonna sit up and tell me
mhm,
I owe y'all more, and then a wealthy person has paid, but then realizing they have legislated these laws because obviously they have done some underneath the table stuff with some of these corporations to where they don't have to force them to pay so much money out of their own pockets in taxes, and they can profit more of that money that they can pocket it more of that profit money that they've made over that course of period of the year to make more of it each and every year, and it keeps going up for them. So
mhm,
they keep making more money. That's why you saw some of these companies make billions upon billions of dollars even during the pandemic. During the shutdown,
mhm.
people were still making this much money. And it's like, wow. And yet we're having people losing their jobs, going on furlough, being laid off, and given like temporary suspensions to their jobs, at least until things kind of let up a bit with this pandemic. But then y'all still making money though, but don't want to pay your employees out, which is why a lot of these employees have turned the tables on these corporations saying, hey, you want me to come back and work? These are my stipulations. If you ain't
Right.
gonna meet me halfway with the pay, you got to accommodate me some kind of way with childcare, with benefits, something, because obviously
Mhm,
having to be shut down and locked in my own house, I had to sit and be with my family and my children to help them get through this situation too. So you have to find some kind of way to compensate me, and that power
mhm,
within itself have given the workers leverage, but a lot of these corporations are still bullheaded, and they still want to they still want to make as much profit as they can, but they sitting here like, you know what? No, you're not going to force our hand. We're going to do this and do that, and they still being
mhm,
stubborn about it. Some of them have been to the wheels of some of these employees, but not that much. A lot of them are still like, you know
mhm,
what? No, I'm not going to compromise that. You're going to have to do this and do that. I recently saw that I think it was Union Pacific, if I'm not mistaken. One of these railroad companies was
mhm,
in a situation where they were hiring private investigators to find out if their employees were indeed sick or ill or hurt or whatever, if they were injured on the job. So one particular guy had worked there for 11 years as a conductor, and,
mhm,
and he had served in many different positions for the company over that course of period of time. He hurt his back in a situation where he required surgery and some rehabilitation of some sort. And they hired a private investigator to see what this man was doing, saw that he had drove his car to the store that was down the street from his home, go get groceries, and saw that he was walking around for X amount of time or whatever. I'm like, well, you do know that doing everyday shit is completely different than actually running and conducting a damn train, right? Like it
exactly.
don't require the same muscles, right? So
Mhm,
for you all to sit up and say you don't have enough money to pay the workers, but you took it upon yourself to pay a private investigator to look this man up to see if he was actually indeed injured and rehabbing his injuries. Look how much time and effort and money you just took in doing that when you could have been paying for his rehabilitation, which you didn't want to pay for out of pocket. because it was
Right.
going to pocket, it was going to take away some of the profit money that you had pocketed yourself. But you don't want to pay
Mm-hmm.
your workers who were injured on this job who could indeed sue you, which ultimately came about. They actually fired the man, and now he's filing a lawsuit
Yeah.
against the
Yeah.
company. I'm
Yeah.
like, see,
Good.
they finding
So
ways, man, to try to get over on these employees, man, and it's utterly ridiculous.
it is. And you said something that I want to touch on during depressions, oppressions, during situations where there's an economic downturn. You best believe somebody is gaining in that
Yep,
situation. You see what I'm saying?
yep,
Somebody is gaining in that situation. Another thing is the government is going to create these loopholes for themselves and for companies because a lot of times when they're getting dollars to run for certain initiatives
yep.
and push certain agendas, those dollars are coming from the companies that they help.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm
Absolutely.
saying?
They're the ones who are really making the laws change around us that basically benefits them the most.
Them. Exactly. Oh yeah. So and I'm glad you mentioned monopoly. So what we have to do, as our people, our community,
Yeah,
is instead of getting depressed about these things, is learn the game. That's it.
absolutely, man. We have to.
Learn
It's
the
imperative that we
game.
learn how to play this game. 'Cause it
Yeah.
is a game,
Mm-hmm.
and people are in the game. They are in the game to win and basically pocket a huge profit in the matter. So we need to be
Mm-hmm.
doing the same thing, even
Mm-hmm.
on the scale that we are at. Right, we can meet each other's where we are until we get to that place where we're obviously gaining even more wealth from that from those gains. Right, so. Man, but
Oh
we
yeah.
have to learn, man. We have to educate
Yeah.
ourselves.
And that takes me to the E on bite.
Okay.
And the E is estate planning. So I'm glad you say you have life insurance because life insurance is also not you can't consider it an investment, but an investment, but it is,
Yeah.
especially if you have permanent life insurance, where you can accumulate cash value within the life insurance policy. And then that cash value is then put in an index, like what we talked about, and it's being invested. So you have that compounding interest of it being invested, every year.
Yeah.
So E is estate planning, where we help our clients with life insurance, annuities like what we talked about. Oh yeah,
Hmm.
and that client that I was telling you about earlier, so I was able to roll that $300,000 over into an annuity, and I actually locked her in with income for life, with the income rider, locked her in with income for life of $75,000 a year, right?
Wow.
And the reason why this it's a decent amount of money to
Yeah.
not go broke.
It's decent. It's a way to. It's a starting point at the very
It's
least.
a
Yeah.
starting point. I'm
Yeah.
glad you said that starting point, and that's what she said. She said, "TJ, I want to make at least six figures in retirement." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. So the job that you're working in now, what I
Mhm.
need you to do is invest in up to the match in that 401k. That way you'll have another 401k that we can roll over, and then also let's look into investing in this Roth IRA and other vehicles. So yeah, I was able to lock her in with the $75,000 for life, but more
Mhm.
than likely she's going to be well over $100,000, and that's for life. Whereas
Yeah.
with certain people, some of them they don't retire. So instead of it being your golden years, it turns into your rusty years because now you have to compete with high schoolers at Chick-fil-A and at Publix for jobs. You have to go back to work. Some of these people they stay retired 3 years and then
Yeah.
they run out of money. So now they have to clear their whole life. Whereas I was able to, and that's why it's very important to have a financial professional help you. And I was able to lock her in $75,000 for the rest of her life. So which means that she don't have to go to work if she don't want to. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Yet to go back to E, So that's life insurance, annuities, as well as trusts. So we help our clients to invest in revocable trusts. So revocable trust just means that you can make changes, right? If
Okay.
it's irrevocable, then you can't make any changes. What you have in that trust, all your assets, all the things that you wrote out in that trust can't be changed, right? Whereas we help our clients create revocable trust. So hey, you buy another property. Let's put that in a trust. Or hey, you have another business that you created. Let's go ahead and have that owned by the trust, right? And see, a lot of people think that only high net worth individuals need trust. Like, oh no, that's a rich man's game, and that's far from the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
I talked to a client a few days ago, and she was telling me that her grandmother's assets are still in probate, and it's been since 2019.
Wow.
So 4 years later.
Because she didn't leave anything to anyone, that it had to go through the courts to decipher and choose who's the next of kin, or who's actually going to be, basically it's going to be falling to from that point on. But the fact that it's still
Mhm,
in probate, I mean, I've had family members deal with that recently,
yeah.
and understood kind of the nuances to that. And I was like, wow. So, and you just never know, man. That's why it's always best to have a trust and a will and testament, so that way things can just smoothly transition over to the next person that you leave it to, rather than having the
So
court
I'm
to
glad
make that decision.
so I'm glad you said that. So if you have a will, it still goes through probate. So a trust is greater than a will. Having a
Okay.
will is
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. What lawyers do is, oh yeah, let me write you a will, right? The reason for that is so they make money on writing a will, and then once you pass, they get paid from your assets. So let me tell you how that works.
Wow.
So
Okay.
if you
I
have,
did not know that
yeah,
either.
so yeah, so if you have a will or you don't have a will, then it's gonna go through probate. What that means is you have courts, lawyers, and judges involved in divvying up your assets.
Right.
So those people have to get paid.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a trust, once you buy the trust, if you were to get a trust from me today, right, that's all you would have to pay is the amount to get the trust today. Moving forward, you don't have to have a lawyer, a judge, or the courts involved, because with a trust, everything happens automatically. So once you pass, there's a death certificate. Now everything gets dispersed through the trust. So that's one thing. Even if you have a will, it costs more because you have to pay the lawyers, the judges, and the
Yeah.
courts. So let's just say you have $1 million in your net worth, right? That you're passing to your heirs. Now, instead of you passing $1 million flat to your family, now you have to give them 600,000 because you have to pay
Oh
everybody
yeah.
else
Yeah.
who was
Yeah.
involved. You
That
see
makes
what
a
I'm
lot of
saying?
Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So
But the quick question about the trust: how do you go about enrolling in the right one? The two, or two that you mentioned, you said that it was, I forget the names or the terms that you use for both of those
yeah,
two. How do you go
re,
about deciphering and choosing which one is the right one to go with?
cool. So if you, I would say, like if you're up in age and you're pretty much just going with the flow. You're not planning on, creating any more assets. You're not planning on buying any more properties. Then you could get away with an irrevocable, meaning you can't make
Irrevocable,
changes. You
revocable, and
can't make
irrevocable.
Yeah, irrevocable means you can't make changes, and revocable means that you can. Yet, if you're a person like me and you want a revocable trust.
Yeah,
You want to trust that you can go and change. You want to trust that you can put more assets in. Okay, I just acquired another home. Let me put that home in the trust. I just acquired another business or
mhm,
started another business. Let me put that business in the trust. With a irrevocable trust, you can't do that. What you can do is get like a blanket will, is what we call it in our industry, a blanket will that will once you pass, it will automatically push over the assets, but it's just better to have a revocable trust.
Okay.
And you know, just you have to uh, invest in yourself, which means having a professional to help you. And that way you can ask questions. That
Yeah.
way, you can be put in the best position that you can be put in.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I have
you
another
know,
quick question to that too. I want to
sure.
add this question to that. So
Mhm,
you mentioned about the 401k plans and stuff like that. So
mhm.
I'm curious to know, is there a limit to the amount of 401k plans that you can enroll in at once, or you can only do one at a time? How does that work?
So typically, a 401k plan is given throughout your job, your employer.
Yeah.
And I mean,
But,
nowadays,
yeah, let's say if you have multiple jobs, right? Can you do
yeah,
multiple 401ks?
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yes sir, yes sir. Do multiple 401ks. You can have a 401k with one job and a 401k with the next job.
Okay.
The it's certain stipulations on different investment vehicles, and then you have a threshold of how much of your income you can invest in those things.
Right.
So with the Roth IRA, I believe right now is 6,500. So you can put up to 6,500 in a Roth IRA, and there's a threshold of how much income you can make. So I believe it's 150,000 or either 250. I have to double check. But once you make over that amount, then you can't invest in a Roth IRA. But there is a way that you can. So if you make over the threshold, what you can do is a backdoor Roth IRA. I'm not sure if you heard of that.
I think my financial advisor kind of mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, a backdoor Roth IRA allows you to take a traditional Roth IRA and create a Roth IRA with it, right? And for the people who are not familiar with these things, so IRA just means individual retirement account, right? And uh, with a Roth IRA, you are putting after-tax dollars in that Roth IRA, and technically, the IRS or the government cannot tax you twice on that money. So
Yeah.
what happens is when you get your check, typically you're being taxed on the money that you receive. And what you're doing is you're taking that money after tax and putting it in that investment. And that's why it's a threshold. And that's why it's an income threshold, and it's an amount that you can put in threshold, because that's after tax dollars that you're throwing in there, and you can pull that money out.
Yeah.
You have access to it.
And the IRS can't tax you on that twice because they already taxed you on it
Exactly.
first time. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
I remember him
Yep.
saying that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Um,
So to touch back on the trust,
yeah.
um, so uh, you have the how much it's going to cost if your assets were to go through probate. And again, I want to touch on this. That's if you don't have a will and if you have a will. So if you have a will, your assets will still go through probate. So you have that the how much it's going to cost and how much you have to pay other people to facilitate the divvying up of your assets. You also have anonymity issues or issues where, because you have to deal with lawyers, courts, judges, now that information is accessible to anybody. It's
Yeah.
public information.
Yeah.
So now you have somebody who can go and say, yeah, she gave her car to her son, and then she gave all her purses and all her jewelry and stuff like that to her niece. So people can see how your assets are being divvied up, as well as scamming. So a lot
Yeah.
of times you'll have a lot of people who they're looking at obituaries to see who just passed. Why?
Yeah.
So they can create a credit card in their name. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So you also have to deal with family members looking and seeing why did he give her the house? I don't even
Yeah.
think that she deserved the house. So with a trust, everything is done privately. Hey, this is what you're getting.
Yeah.
And there's nothing other than the trust that shows the details of that. So you have privacy
So
issues.
even with the trust, if you have a will and you have a
Uh-huh,
trust too, then you
uh-huh.
won't necessarily have to go through the courts to mitigate any of that, right? But versus
True.
just having a will, you will have to do that. Is that correct?
So if you have a will, then it's going to go through probate.
Right. But if you have a will and a trust, what does that look like?
So if you have a will and a trust, what's going to happen is, especially if it's a blanket will, what's going to happen is it's going to push those assets into the trust. And with the
Okay.
trust, yep. And with the trust, you can leave it revocable, or you can make it irrevocable once you pass. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That also helps. That also helps with taxes, because if your money is in a trust, you don't pay the taxes. Nobody pays the taxes on those assets. It's basically
Okay.
being transferred to your beneficiaries,
Right.
right? And so you can set it up to where when I pass, I want it to stay. I want my trust to say revocable. I'll just create a co-trustee that when I pass, now they're the trustee, and it
Yeah.
stays open so we can continue to add assets to it.
So that
Or
person will be liable to add more assets to that even after the initial trustee has passed on. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
and then or you can make it irrevocable. To touch on what you're asking about, you can make it irrevocable when you pass. So that way, as soon as you have that death certificate, now that trust becomes irrevocable. Everything that went over into the trust is now you can't make any changes after that. And whatever assets you have in there can now be divvied up to everyone. So, oh yeah, it's definitely, especially if you have a irrevocable trust,
Hmm.
a trust that cannot be changed, then that's when you want to think about using a blanket will to push those things over into that trust.
Okay. Now, even during the process of this, at any time you can add, new recipients to this trust or to these or to that will,
Yep.
right? Like you don't have a fixed set of people or a fixed person that you can pass this on to. Like again, if it's just you and your wife, but then you and your wife have a child, then you can add your child to
Mm-hmm.
that will or to that trust. Like, is there a limit on how many people you can add to that particular plan?
Nope. Nope.
Okay, that makes a lot
Nope.
of sense.
I'm glad you asked that. So,
Yeah,
so there's no limit that you can, especially if you have a revocable trust. If you have a revocable trust, now the law is that you have to put all your children, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
You have to put all your children on the trust. If you don't, then that's when the courts have to get involved, because
Yeah.
the child can say, hey,
Yeah.
that's my father, why am I not getting anything, right? So technically you have to put all your children on the trust, yet you can decide if that child gets anything. So if you don't want that child to get anything, you can make sure that the trust says that, okay, this child does not get anything. So you can start it off like that.
Hmm.
And then let's just say years go by and you're like, you know what? Now our relationship is better and I want that child to get something. If it's a revocable trust where you can make changes, boom, you just go back to it, you make the changes. You see what
Okay.
I'm saying? So that's the beauty of revocable trust, is you can make changes. You can set up your power of attorney. You can set up so your medical power of attorney, your financial power of attorney. You can set it up in detail. You can tell that financial power of attorney, listen, when I pass, all my all my stocks in Amazon, sell them. And once you sell them, I want it to be distributed to my beneficiaries evenly. Um, and you can even set it up to where you say, hey, my child, if I pass during a certain time time period when my child is under the age of 18, you can set up guardians. So I want this person to be my guardian. I want for that child to be taken care of, right? But at the age of 18, I want them to get this other portion of it.
Yeah,
At the
so
age of,
setting those stipulations to when they become a certain age, and they'll be able to kind of take more of the responsibility themselves to pretty much house and be responsible of that trust once they like
yeah,
21 or 25 and things like that. Yeah, I've seen
mhm,
that happen before. And that
yes,
makes a lot of
sir.
sense too, because you don't want to leave a world of assets to a child who's not even familiar with how to maneuver, manage, and operate all this stuff. Because
Mhm,
their mind is still developing, right? So they're still a
exactly.
child at the end of the day. So you're going to need some supervisory or guardianship around them to help them understand
Mhm,
exactly what their responsibility and roles are once that time comes. And so, yeah,
exact.
it's always best to have those people around in the event that something happens, right? Things happen all the
Mhm,
time, and we all know we have an expiration date. We don't know what that date is, though, unfortunately.
exactly.
So we can't
Mhm,
really pinpoint when we're going to leave something to somebody, when, where, and how. So we
mhm,
gotta kind of be proactive rather than reactive in situations like this. Because the last thing we want to do is leave it to the courts, and it takes years, like you said before with one of your clients. It took 2, 3 years for them to get to a place where now things are starting to be dispersed among them and other family members, and that's not fair to them because that's putting them through that hardship all over again, having to deal
all
with
over.
the loss of that person and the assets that they left behind to be dispersed, hopefully equally to everyone that's involved. But it don't
Mhm,
always work out that way, unfortunately, and I've
yep,
seen that happen too. But man,
yep.
it's some really, really, really powerful information, man, that you were able to really pinpoint and talk about. Last question to you: how can people reach you if they have any financial inquiries of any kind? How can people reach out to you? Are you on social media that people can like just inquire certain things and just ask questions of you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So on all social media platforms, LinkedIn included, True Blue Financials with an S. So that's TrueBlueFinancials. So that's True Blue Financials. Uh, my website is truebluefinancials.com. And like I said, I just wrote the book, The Four Pillars of Financial Independence. So you can go to my website, you can get the book, you can go to my Instagram, and under my link, you'll have access to the book. But that's actually a hack for a lot of people, right? Because once you purchase the book and you read it, you have that foundation. At the end, I give you a present where I'm like, hey, listen, you now get a free discovery consultation with me. So with once you buy the book, you get the information. Now you get the call, set up an appointment, and then we can talk about some more details related to it.
Okay. Yeah, man, I'm definitely gonna provide this information in the description of this episode so people can obviously know where to reach you via social media or even throughout the website as well. And they can definitely
Yes,
check
sir.
out definitely check out your book, The Four Pillars to Financial Independency. And so I definitely appreciate you for sharing that. And like I said, I'll make sure to have all of this information in the description. So, ladies and gentlemen, you all will be able to have access to him via social media and his website. Just make sure you take a look at it. Reach out to him if you have any inquiries whatsoever. And when it comes to financial independency and just the overall spectrum of how to be consciously involved and being literate when it comes to financial literacy in general, because this is information that has to be passed down to our future generations and their future generations too, because we as Black people, we all know that we're so financially illiterate that we've been so far behind the curve when it comes to not only maintaining and building traditional or generational wealth, but sustaining that wealth. We've had people in the past who have built the wealth, but then it wasn't able to be sustainable. And so
Mhm,
we want to be able to be in a place where we're passing things down to generations on in to a point where it's generations that we won't even be alive to see. Because that's
mhm,
how the wealthier people, that's how a lot of these white people who are wealthy are doing it for their families. And so we should be missing out on this information that's going to help us build that same very thing for our future generations as well. So,
Exactly.
again, man, Taji, thank you so much, man, for your time. I definitely want to circle back with you to have you on the show again to kind of expound on more of these things, because like you and I both know, this is an ongoing conversation that we have to continue to have, because again, information is very important, man, but it's even more impactful when it's coming from people who look just like you, coming from similar backgrounds, if not the very identical backgrounds that each and every one of our listeners out there come from. So we definitely want to be very purview to this information that's being dispersed out here, so that we can find it applicable in our own everyday lives.
Yep.
And thank you for your time.
I couldn't have said it. I couldn't have said it no better than how you just put it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Like I said, I'm again, as I'm learning, because again, I'm not just putting this information out just for the viewers and listeners. I'm also taking this information in myself, and my wife and I are constantly having these ongoing conversations about different aspects of life that we can help each other and help our family grow and be successful in these areas too, because it's important that we do that. We don't come from money, so we want to leave money here. The whole purpose of life is to leave it better than you receive, right? And so that's the whole purpose of all of this in all facets of life. We want to be able to show our kids how to do this, how to navigate through life with already having some of these things in place for them to be able to do that.
Oh yeah.
And really appreciate it. And like I said, I really appreciate your time, man. And like I said, we'll definitely circle back and have more of these ongoing conversations.
It sounds good, man. This was amazing. I really appreciate you for having me on here.
Same here. And definitely kudos to your wife again, man, for reaching out to me on your behalf. I really appreciate our Black men and women of all entities, all organizations, and all professions that's really tuning into to these episodes, because like I said, utilizing my voice in this platform to help give flowers to those people who are in real time making real impact and change. And when it comes to our Black community, and inspiring those who look like us to do the same thing. So I appreciate every single one of you all that's tuning in, listening, and subscribing. Keep doing that. Keep sharing the message, because we're going to keep pumping out this informational content that's very helpful for our community.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, man. You take it easy now. Like I said, we'll circle back.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. If you like what you've heard from this week's episode and would like to hear more from previous episodes, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel below. You can also find me on social media platforms at Speak to the Mic _podcast show on Instagram and Speak to the Mic podcast show on Facebook. Be sure to also like, share, and subscribe to my Spotify page at Speak to the Mic podcast show. As I put out more thought-provoking content, your opinion and thoughts are needed and appreciated. I thank you all in advance for your support and look forward to hearing from you soon.